Before we get into this, I just wanted to say that this channel exists because of parents like you. And if you're finding these conversations helpful, subscribing really does make a difference. It helps us keep going and bringing voices into the community. So thank you for being here because it really does mean a lot. Enjoy the video. Welcome to Julie, a homeschooling mom in Florida. How long have you been homeschooling? How many children and what are their ages?
So I started homeschooling in the 1990s, so I'm kind of an old gal. We had 7 children, and we homeschooled them most of the way for some of them, the youngest all of the way. So their ages are 33. I have to look at my paper because I forget they're old. 33, 31, 30, 27, 25, 23, and 19. So our 7th child graduated homeschooling in 2024. So she finished the journey. What you wanted to know mostly.
And do you think that that's changed over the years since 1999?
In the 90s, yeah. I mean, 1996, I think, is when I officially started. So has it changed? It's exploded. Florida is exploding with homeschoolers, as well as the United States. So in Florida alone, I wrote this down so I would have the numbers for you. We have 152,000 students that are homeschooled in 24-25, which is a lot. Some countries and states that exceeds just the population of the school-age children. So Florida has a lot of homeschooled children. And we even have something else because we have a choice program in Florida. Our Governor DeSantis, leads the way in allowing parents to choose. And so even government funding is available for homeschooling. So this past year was the first year that we actually had more people accepting that choice scholarship than we do in the public education system. So more parents are accepting these funds and either going to public education or they're choosing to homeschool their child and using the funds for themselves, for their curriculum, private therapies, field trips, new bicycles, a playground, whatever you choose as a parent. So we have a lot of freedom for that.
So is there quite a strict monitoring of that funding? Or as you say, you can choose to spend it on how you see fit?
So there's a handbook, there's guidelines, and there's a few different scholarships. So if you have a child that has unique abilities, let's say they've got a speech issue, they've got autism, dyslexia, or anything like that, they're under what's called the Unique Ability Scholarship, the UA scholarship. That's the best scholarship to have in Florida because there's the least strings attached to it. There's still a handbook that goes with it. But those funds can be used to spend for therapies, for your own private speech therapy, or if your medical insurance covers speech, then the funds can be used to pay for the co-payments that the parent would normally pay out of pocket. So again, the parent decides, but you can use the funds for a computer or a tablet or something that is useful for your child for educational purposes. If you have a child that learns best kinesthetically, hands-on, then they're going to be able to order the science kits and they're going to be able to use it for more field trips, a trip to Disney or Epcot or something like that. It's not unlimited, but there's certain amounts, like you can spend up to so much for those kinds of field trips and things. So there are parameters to how it's spent, but there's no testing that's done for those children that have the unique abilities because they fall into a broad range of needs. Kids who maybe need to have behavioral therapy where someone comes into their home and helps them learn how to do day-to-day things. And then you have very high functioning kids with autism that their needs are going to look a lot different. So there is no testing requirement by the state for those children at all. So the parents really have a lot of freedom and how they spend their funds. Yeah. Then we have another scholarship called the PEP, personalized educational program. And those are the parents that say, hey, I want to homeschool. Can I have money for that? And the state says yes. And they give you money, but you, in agreement, at the very end of the year, must take a national standardized test. And so there's 28 tests to choose from. So the parent has some legal freedom there. You could take the Iowa test, the Stanford Achievement Test. We offer, different benchmark types of tests. But that is the only thing that is required from that person the entire year. So Florida is unique in the freedom. In other parts of the United States, when you homeschool, there are some states that are very strict. They have homeschool advisors or evaluators where the homeschooler must go and see that person every month and check off that they're doing what they said they were going to do. We don't have that in Florida, thankfully. When you homeschool your children, you have every right to homeschool them however you choose, because you're the parent and you know your child the best. If you have a child that learns by books and, reading, great. If they love the computer-based learning, wonderful. If they are all hands-on learning, wonderful. We have that much freedom in our state, thankfully.
Yeah, that's great. And is there a simple answer to why are people choosing to homeschool over
Yes.
mainstream?
Because the benefits are exploding everywhere on the internet, for one, but people are really realizing this is my child. My child doesn't belong to the government. They don't belong to anyone else. Is the school meeting the child's needs? I'm not against public school. I was a public school teacher for 3 years, but I saw firsthand 30 children in the class, or 32 or 33 or whatever it was in second grade. That's where I taught. And you have those kids that you cannot reach. And I don't care if they get pulled out for these little, tier 1, tier 2, and 3. That's what we call it here. These levels of interventions. They need more individualized care.
It doesn't suit everybody, does it?
No, it just doesn't. And so parents are realizing we have a choice, and we can take our child and in a lot of cases receive these funds, and then we can turn around and customize their educational plan for that child and figure out what works. And I have parents that work, and I have parents that don't work. And I say and I'm sorry, I didn't clarify myself. I am not homeschooling my children anymore, and I'm not homeschooling anyone else's. But in Florida, once a year, if you're a homeschooler just under the county or a homeschooler under that UA scholarship, then a licensed teacher does need to check in with you once a year. But it's a very stress-free process because of the way our law is written. I'm just really a resource for the parent. How can I help you? Where do you feel your child is behind? Let me offer therapy services, a curriculum that might be a better match for your child. So that's what my role is. So I work with hundreds and hundreds of families every year, checking in with them to see how their homeschooling is going, offering encouragement and advice, since I am a former homeschool parent, and just, the educational background.
While we're talking about your business, Brevard Evaluations, let's perhaps dive into that a little bit more, because I love the coaching element that you offer parents, and that's I think that's quite unique. We haven't seen that here anyway in the UK. It'd be great to hear about your work.
Well, thank you. It's lovely. It's a lovely little way to offer the wisdom that I have from my own experience, plus the, educational background and seeing hundreds of families. I sit in a special place where I get to see the unique beauty that every family has and how they're approaching their educational plan for their family. And so I really take it all in. And when I come across somebody else, it's like, wait, I know this family that's doing this and this and this for their child that's nonverbal, or for their child that's extremely gifted and wants to do this. And so I kind of have this data bank in here to offer that for others, because I'm just on a mission to really help parents feel empowered to see that they really can do this. Because I know it's frightening. I came from public school. My parents were both teachers. They started in public education with high school and then moved to college or into other roles in the system. So it was really different when I said I was going to homeschool my children. My parents were like, why are you doing that? You know?
Yeah.
But we had 7, and they were very close in age. And my boys were so active, there was no way they were going to sit in a chair. And they knew how to read. And I thought, they're just going to be in trouble the whole time. I already know. I know. And so we just started homeschooling, you know, and that whole process, I had to kind of forget about some of the structure that I thought school looked like, and realize that our everyday life, we were learning all the time. And, you know, from the cooking to the exploring outside to my oldest used to play with the video camcorder, you know, the bigger ones that sat on your shoulder. And he has his own video production company today. And I think, you know, I see this with so many families. When you give children tools to explore, they naturally gravitate to what their passions and their gifts are. And once that happens and we keep feeding them and we keep feeding them, they become mini experts, right? And because they've had more time to do that, they really do dive in to what it is they love. So, I mean, I can talk about all of my children because they are all so unique and amazing about what they've done, you know?
Well, we've been so conditioned, though, haven't we, that the adult has to lead and the adult knows more. But actually, I mean, we talk to parents all the time here. If you, as you said, if you hone in onto their interest, they're learning all the other academic stuff as they go, but they're actually enjoying it rather than being made to follow a subject that actually they probably don't even really care about.
No, that's right. There was a psychologist, John Holt. Have you heard of him?
No.
Learning all the time. You'll have to look up a YouTube video, and it is precisely that. It's like we adults that get in the way of them naturally learning. Somebody I studied back in college, and I was glad I was exposed to that long ago. Because like I said, when I first started with my children, I remember I was like, we're saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and my son's like, are we going to do this every day? Like, no, we don't need to do this. We need to be outside, you know, on the trampoline and looking for bugs and going to the beach and exploring as a family. And all that did was create bonds of very strong memories with my children, who are now all very good friends, and they support one another as adults. You know, someone has a baby and people are flying to go, you know, help them where they live, and they're all very close. So I wouldn't change anything.
Well, and for us, I think, you know, we talk to a lot of people, and it creates an all-round individual, and that's what you want, don't you? You know, like you said, you want to live life, you want to contribute to society, and homeschooling or home educating, there's just that flexibility to allow those family values as well, and that lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But also, Julie, like you coming from like a schooling environment, I mean, what happened for you to completely shift and decide it's not what you want to do and to go into the
I'm so glad you asked that, because before I made that decision, I was with one of my best friends, and I flat out told her I would never homeschool my children. And
that's always how it starts.
Isn't it? I mean, the exact opposite of what I said. And she had been a nanny with a family that had homeschooled. And we were roughly the same age, starting our families, and she would tell me all about this family and how she was going to homeschool. And I said, oh, that's great. I don't plan on doing that. My only experience when I was in the public school, there was a child that joined later and he knew nothing. Like, his parents didn't teach him anything. So my exposure was, oh, those parents don't do anything. He's so far behind. But that's not what happens. And especially if you are a really engaged, encouraging, loving, tuned in parent, when your child wants to know how to tie their shoes, you teach them. When they want to know something, you keep teaching them. And so that never stops, right? It's natural. Yeah. So if you're an engaged parent, that relationship and that learning doesn't end when you magically turn 5 or 6 and push off to school. Why do we do that?
Yeah. Well, and same with, why does learning end at 16 or 18? It doesn't.
Never.
We're always learning.
Right. And I remember there were times in my homeschooling where I would have days that were difficult, because we all do. And I remember the bus pulling out, the front of my house, and I thought, oh, if I could just push them out the door, on a bad day.
Yeah.
But then I said to myself, but what am I doing? I'm pushing out a bad behavior to someone else to fix. Because I was mad at what my child was doing. And I was like, no, that's my job to fix what's wrong here. If there's something wrong and we're disagreeing, or he's not happy, or he's throwing a fit, I need to find out why. And I, as the parent, need to fix this problem. This isn't a problem for someone else to fix. Does that make sense?
It's very interesting that you say that, because we've spoken to a few teachers that have gone from teaching to the homeschooling, home educating route. And the biggest theme that they have is, they state that they are raising these kids and they're not just teaching them. They're basically their parent and their teacher, and that's what's making them want to leave. And it's really sad.
It is sad. But I think parents have to take the ownership for their child. Yes. And they should be teaching all the time, whether they're homeschooled or public schooled. You have to train your children, right? You would train your dog. Why would we not train our children? Yeah. So I remember having that realization of, no, this is my responsibility, and my husband's. And if something's not working well at home, we need to be the ones to fix it,
How did you prepare for that homeschool journey?
A lot of prayer. I read a lot of books, right? A lot of things to help in that regard. And thankfully, I had a very small group of friends from my church who also decided to take the leap together. And so I think having that really small community of people, we would meet at the park once a week, and when they were very small, and then as they grew, it was very informal in the beginning. Hey, I could teach Spanish, every Friday for a month, and another mom said, oh, well, I'll do science experiments, on a different month, and we did it together. Yeah. And it was more fun for our children to do it that way. And then, our husbands would watch the kids, and we all women would go out for a night for a glass of wine and tell our stories and help each other with areas that were, we needed help and support. So this is long before the internet was really around. Now you've got your Facebook groups and your Instagram influencers and the people you follow, that you get some more support, thankfully, because you really can't do it by yourself. You really need to have a community of people to help you. And thankfully, we are so interconnected. I mean, look, the 3 of us in 3 countries. How beautiful.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to parents starting out?
Aha. Well, the first advice I would give is give yourself a lot of grace. Because if you went to school, please do not try to recreate the exact same thing at home. And I did that for a long time. And I kind of went through waves. As they got older, it was like, you need to do, you've got to do more. But you've got to give yourself a lot of patience and grace, because you're going to take time to get to know each other. And I always tell my clients, for me with a large family, after lunch, it was like mandatory 1 hour of rest time. Everybody had to go in their room. I don't care if you nap, if you're little, or if you build Legos or you're reading a book, but I need to go in my room and
reset.
Yes, and have a reset, because then it was like, okay, then we can go back and finish whatever needs to be done in the afternoon. But when your children are younger, you can do any academic just in the morning, and it's plenty. It's plenty. You should be exploring and playing and using your body. My goodness, they have so much energy. The other is realizing that you're going to learn right along with your children, because there's things that you forgot. We don't retain everything. Children aren't either. And so following the things they love, don't be afraid to do that, because, they love dinosaurs or they love rocket ships or whatever it is. They're going to do that until they become so saturated. They'll tell you when they're done, and then they'll move to sharks or they'll move to something else. And that's okay, because we as adults do the same thing, right? We find our Pinterest favorite pages, or we have our favorite things, cooking or crafting or whatever it is, learning how to make the sourdough bread or the kombucha or whatever. You learn stuff, and then when you're done, you move on. Kids are the same. I mean, I'm still all for reading and writing and learning math, but that also can be done in a gentle way. It's not as strict as it has to be. Let me tell you a real quick story. The Colfaxes were an inspirational family to me. When I started in the 90s, they had homeschooled in the 80s. And somehow I learned about them on the early internet, or caught them on TV or something. They had 3 or 4 sons, and they lived in a very rural town. And when it was time for their children to go to kindergarten, the parents realized, my son's going to ride a bus an hour and a half each way over a mountain to go to school, and he's 6 years old. And her mother instinct said no. And they kept him home. And they were goat farmers or some type of farmer. And so all they did was teach their kids how to run this farm, right? And so these boys learned how to run the farm. They started getting older, and the parents said, do you want to take over the farm, or do you think you want to go to college someday? Now, mind you, they didn't have any formal education at all. They were unschooling, which seems crazy, right? So here they were in high school. They said they wanted to go to college. So the parents sat down with them, and that's when they started education, like punctuation, capitals, quotation marks, the whole thing.
Wow.
Well, those boys, because their brains were mature and ready, they learned everything they needed to know. And they all went to Ivy League schools, which is big here in the United States, Harvard and Yale and the very prestigious schools. And they all went into those schools, and they all have success stories. One of them even worked for one of our former President Bush. So you'll have to look up the Colfax family. But I remember when I heard that story, I said, okay, if they didn't do anything until high school, even if I can do a little bit every day, little bit, and read to my children, read everything. And that's what we did, So,
but then, as you said, so why do we put this pressure on 5-year-olds up,
Right. When it should start with enjoyment. Think about your children when you're read to them, how they
Yeah.
learn to love the story. And we're helping them build their attention span
Yeah.
as we increase the lengths of the stories that we read.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot when we're reading with children.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and reading is really the key to it all, because once they learn to read, they can teach themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is interesting.
That's an
It just
incredible
it makes you
story.
think about the whole system. You think, why? Why?
yes,
Because it doesn't
yes,
suit everybody. Everybody's got a different way of learning, a different pace of learning, different
yes,
needs, as you said. And,
yes,
Mm.
you know,
And
I,
interest as well.
yeah. And I didn't
yes.
realize how sort of flexible Florida was in that way. I think
Oh,
it's brilliant.
incredible how
Mm.
flexible it is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, some people would say that it's flexible to a fault, but not really, because the parents mostly who are choosing to homeschool, they're very engaged, and they're looking to customize, and some of them have businesses. I have a family that's they have goats, but they have their own soap business. So they take the goats, so they create the milk from the soap, and so the whole family is involved in the business, and
Yeah.
they know how to
They're
take care
learning a
of the
trade.
goats. And
Yeah.
they know the business,
Mm.
and they know how to set up displays and the marketing and everything that goes with it. So,
Wow.
and then there's families that travel a lot. They travel a lot.
Mm.
Their home base is in Florida, but they travel. I have two clients that are actors. There's a young girl, Ella Grace. She's one of the lead stars in Steel Magnolias. It's a series here in the United
Oh,
States,
yeah.
Oh,
but
wow, that's
she's
cool.
based here in Brevard. And so, she's in Los Angeles, she's in New York, she's filming, but she's able to do that and still homeschool.
Yeah.
Her mother
Oh,
has
that's incredible.
customized her education beautifully. So, you can do so much. You can
Yeah.
do so many
Mm.
things.
Yeah, definitely. I think if the will's there and you can think outside
Yes,
the box, you can make
right.
anything happen.
If you've made it this far, please give a thumbs up. What's a moment when you realized your child was learning even when it didn't look like school? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.